Hello, welcome along in this session. Today I'm going to be migrating some accounts from a source tenant to a target tenant in Microsoft 365. I'm going to be using the MigrationWiz tool from BitTitan to achieve everything. What I'm going to show you is how we set up the project, how we get the source and target configured, and how we actually do the whole migration end to end. So let's jump straight in and have a look at the source environment and see what we are going to be migrating. So I'm logged in here to the admin console on our Cozy Mouse tenant, which we're going to be our source tenant today. And if we hit active users, you'll see we've got quite a few people there. And I'm going to bring over 4 accounts from this Cozy Mouse tenant as the source into the Planium tenant, which is the target M365 environment. So before we go ahead and do the project creation inside MigrationWiz, what we can do is we can prepare the source and the target tenant with what needs to be done. Now there's obviously help desk articles that you can go through and do this. I'm going to show you line by line exactly what to do as we go through, but the help desk articles are very useful to use and use as a guideline. Even if you've done it a few times, it's worthwhile having that open in another window so you can just check out what you are doing. But the first thing to notice is we do need to have an account on the tenant itself for MigrationWiz. If I keep scrolling down here, excuse me, you'll find there is one here called MigWiz, which is, if we go down here, there, it is there. Now MigWiz is like I say, a service account. We'll just use it. It doesn't have to be Mailbox enabled. It can just be an account that lives there. And you can see I've given it a role of global reader. It does not need to be a global admin. A global reader is perfectly fine. And that just allows it to pick up like the user and the main information around the users. It doesn't give rights to the mailboxes. We're going to do that with the API permissions that we'll assign. So obviously global reader is important to give this service account. Another note on that account, it must be excluded from any MFA. So if you've got conditional access set up, then put that into your exclusion group so it does not need it. So that is definitely something you want to be doing at the start of the setup here. Right, so let's now go and set up that application registration that is required. So we'll go to Identity up here and get into the Enter ID, and we will be going to the applications here on the left and look at app registrations, and we'll say new registration. So here we will put in here MigrationWiz, just give it a name and leave that alone, a single tenant, no need to put anything in here, and just hit register. That'll create that for us. And what we want to do here though is we're going to grab the application ID, the client ID here, and the directory, which is the tenant ID from here, and put that into clipboard, which is useful for later. Now what I've done here, if I say copy to clipboard and go to my clipboard, I've already got it prepped up because I know that I'm going to be getting these items. So that's our client ID, and back up in here, you see we need the tenant ID as well, which we'll just put into this one. So the second part, we need to go to the Authentication tab and turn on the public flows. Save that. And now let's go and have a look at the API permissions that it needs. So there's 2 that we're going to be adding in here. We're going to hit the Add Permission, and we'll look at APIs my organization uses. And if you just type in Office, you'll get these come up. It's easier to find the Exchange Online one if you do. So the first one is a delegated permission. We'll add that in, and that will be EWS, like so. Hit add on that, and then we can add another, which will be, once again, do exactly the same thing. Office Exchange Online, and that will be an application permission. And the one we need here is this top one, full access as app. Now that will give access to all of the mailboxes for this particular API. Now if you don't want to do that and you do want to scope that instead, have a look in the help desk article, and there is a video in there about how to scope that out. It's the same process for the setup, but it means we don't put the full access in here as a permission. We set up a service principal and do a role management scope, but that's in that particular video. So if you need to scope it rather than give access to everything, then please go check that out. Right, with those 2 in there, now we say grant the admin consent and say yes, and that'll go green on this side, as you can see. So that's the permissions done. Last thing we need to do in here is add the client secret, which we'll do with this item, new client secret, and we'll just give it a name and it has an expiry date there. Depends how long you're doing the migration for. If you want to set a custom date, just leave it as 6 months is the standard, but if you want to go back and clean it up later, then you can remove that. So we'll hit add. Now what it will do is it'll put the value of the secret in here, which is essentially the password. You need to copy that to clipboard as well, and you can see we'll put that into this item here, client secret, for later on. Now these are important. We need to grab these when we're setting up the project inside the MigrationWiz Console. So this is why I'm putting them into Notepad. It's a handy place to keep them, so it's easy to grab them and put them in when we need to a little later on. Now moving across to our target environment, we need to do exactly the same thing. So if I have a look at my active users in here, and if I do a quick search for MIG, you can see I do have a MigrationWiz service account already set up and done. That one is licensed, you'll notice. I was just using that for some testing with some mail. It does not need to be licensed, as we mentioned before, but it does need to have that global reader in there as well. So that's important for it to have. So I'm going to go into the application registration on this side and create one. It's exactly the same as the one we've just done. So I'll just show you once it's done rather than the waste time you watching me create another one of exactly the same thing. So as I finish that up, you can see I've got one I've just created in MigrationWiz. I've called it October 2024, and I've done the API permissions, I've done the secret, the authentication, and the setup. I've grabbed those IDs and put them into here as well. So as I said, it was the same as what we did for the source. The source and target are configured identically in terms of the process we need. Now I'm going to start configuring the MigrationWiz Console. So we'll go in and log in here. Now if you are interested in where that information came from, for what I've just been doing, have a look at the Help Center, and you'll find if you say Perform a Migration and have a look at Exchange Online here on the left and Exchange Online to Exchange Online, it will take you through the setup process, which is what I'm obviously going through here. But what the part that is interesting for the setup is when we do the prepare the source environment, it's the required permission for performing migrations, and this is the setup that we've just done, which is the new application registration and everything end to end, which I've shown you just now. So I just thought I'd reference the help desk. They do have some good instructions in here. If you haven't done it before, you want to go through slowly, then you can certainly use that. But for this, I'll close that because we're just going to go ahead now and create this new project. So we'll set it up as a mailbox project and we'll give it a name. We'll call this one Cozy Mouse Demo and put a customer. So I'll hit new here and we'll put that detail in, cozymouse.com, and it is just Cozy Mouse. Hit save and we are ready to configure these endpoints. So we go across to the endpoint and we would say a new one, which we'll call this one Cozy Mouse M365 source, and our endpoint type is going to be 365, and this is where it wants the credentials for that account we had. Remember we had migwiz at cozymouse.com, and we've got the password here. Add that in, and now it's asking for the details about the connection to the tenant. So this is where the client ID, and now you can see why it's easier, because I can now just grab those nice and quickly out of Notepad and drop them straight into the project setup, like so. It takes us into the destination, which we do exactly the same thing, and I will call this one Target M365. It doesn't have to be the same convention, it can be whatever you like. So that's all good to have that, and the same thing with those credentials, which is going to be the plenium.com with our password. Adding in. So now we put the details in for the target now. So we grab the client ID and our tenant ID. And lastly, the client secret. Now we do need to specify the data center which is closest to where the target lives. That will give us the best performance for the migration. So in this case, we'll hit United States. We hit next step here. We're not doing any coexistence, so we'll hit the go to summary, and that will save it, but also check out that we've done things correctly from the initial validation, which it has. It says project saved. Now I want to show you as well, if you look at advanced options here, this is where the information is kept around those client secrets and the tenant IDs, which are automatically put in there for us now, which is nice. So that all looks good. We're happy to go ahead and start looking at this project now. So if I click on the project here, you'll see it's empty and we are ready to add things in. There's a few ways you could do this. We can do the quick add, which you can type them in one by one. If it's only doing one or two, you could easily do that. The bulk add is a better option because you can import a CSV file with all of the items there. You can also do auto discover. I'm not going to do auto discover on this demo because it will just grab everybody from the source tenant and add them into the project automatically. I want to have a little bit more control over that in terms of the users we're selecting. So I'm going to hit bulk add. And you can see it wants a CSV file. Now we could cut and paste things into this window if we wanted to, but I'm going to show you here. If we say download the sample CSV file, you end up with a file that looks, let me just drag that in, looks like this. So if you've got a run sheet or anything else that you've been working on for your migration, you'll have a list of the source emails and what the destination emails should be. So you'd certainly want to be using that. But essentially, the important thing is to get the list of users in these columns. If they're in a CSV, great, or put them into this ideal here. So let me just populate those with what we are needing for this migration, then we can continue. So there's our data, there's our 4 users with our source email addresses and then what the destination email addresses will be. You'll notice as well that I'm making them all go to planium.com. It doesn't matter what address they come from, it's just a mapping between the two. So you could say if you wanted to have different source email addresses going to different accounts, this is really your mapping file about how you want that to be set up. Now, something else to remember as well is these accounts inside the destination tenant need to be obviously created. They need to be mailbox enabled, so you're going to want to assigning your licenses in there as well. And the main concept here is they need to be live accounts that are ready to go for mail, and then obviously they would the migration process is going to be populating all of that mail across from the source into the target. So really from your source side that's all done, but on your destination side have those accounts ready and ready to receive mail. Effectively they'll be live accounts on the side of the target. So you can see by selecting that file, the data has now appeared here. So we'll say on this item, when newly detected mailboxes are migrated, that's when we're adding it into the project. If you're adding more and more items into a project, then these are obviously important to handle if it's already in the project or whether it's an addition there. So we'll say save, and you'll find that will drop into our migration project here. Now if I select one of these here, what I want to show you is the main options that we would have for the migration process. So first of all, we're going to be wanting to do that with verify credentials. Now I'm going to do that now and just kick it off because it takes a few minutes to do that. So I want to come back relatively quickly, but you can see now the status of that says submitted. So we could do that. What it will do is it will check on the source whether it can access the data, can it see the mailbox, can it get to it, and also on the target site, is there a user created and is everything ready to go. So you can set it up so that you could maybe do a verify credentials across all of them. That's fine. If you've got one, obviously you'll find that your settings that you have for your application permissions and the like are tested with that. So if you're just doing a test for that, one of them is fine. If you want to test all of them, by all means go ahead. But the task here is, if I select that again, we've got also the pre-stage migration and then a full migration. So what the pre-stage does, it will take a defined range of time, and normally would say the entire mailbox minus 30 days. Because if you've got some large mailboxes, let's say you've got a 40, 50 gig mailbox you're bringing over, you don't want to be starting the migration on, say, the Friday night when you're migrating it, because it's going to take a long time to perform that migration. We want to make the actual cutover time when we do the full migration as quick as possible. So really what you want to be doing is pre-staging all of your migrations at least a week or 2 weeks ahead if you can, and then you'll find the full migration will just catch up that delta. What has changed and been added to, it will then bring that across. Makes the cutover a lot quicker if you can go ahead and do these two. If you want to just go straight to a full migration, obviously you can do, depending on the size of the mailbox, is how much time that is going to take you. So what we do, I just wait here and just see when that comes back from the submitted. It will go through and process and verify those credentials. Once that's come back, I'll refresh this screen and I'll talk to you again. So that's now come back, completed the verification for the credentials and like for all of those users, which is very good to see. Now what I want to show you before we jump into the pre-staging migration and the full one is I want to show you the source account, which is this guy. So this is Bob's account on the Cozy Mouse side, as you can see here. And if we look here, we've got Bob Jones at cozymouse.com. He's got a bit of data. He's one of my test users that we added to a lot of Fox News and other mail sources, which is why we get quite a lot in there. It's good as a migration test to see it all come across. So if I just drop that one away, because what I also have here is his new account in the Planium tenant. As you can see here, it's Bob Jones at planium.com, which is completely empty. So as we go through this process now, we should see this mailbox start to populate with the mail, obviously, from the other. So let's go ahead now, and we need to assign some licenses. I'm going to assign that user migration bundle rather than the standard using the normal mailbox account, because we will be doing a OneDrive migration in another video with the same type of project set up. So we would use that license for both of those. So what we do there is we hit the tick, and then we come here and apply user migration bundle licenses. It'll tell us how many we're going to use, how many we've got left. And looks like I don't have any in there. Now that is because, let me show you this. This is one of those nice things you need to know, is that if you've got different work groups set up, the licenses are applied to work groups rather than your main user account. So let me show you what I mean by that, and I'll show you how to transfer these licenses around. This is good we've hit this, because this is a nice thing to show you. So what we do is we'll go into licenses, and it should show that we have, not much. We've got MigrationWiz normal mailbox licenses assigned into this migration demo workgroup. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my main workgroup, and you'll see I've got some more licenses in there. Let me just go into here, hit licenses, and you see I've got some more. So what I want to do, I want to take these user migration bundle licenses. I'll take this guy here, and you can see I've got quite a few. I'm going to assign maybe 10 across to the other work group. How we do that is we go to coupons, and we'd say generate coupon, and I'll call it here. Let's call it Cozy Mouse Demo. We'll select the licenses we want to use, and it'll be one of these guys here. That's the one we're looking at before. We'll include 10 licenses. I can put an email address. It'll send a note saying it's done if we do, but I'll just leave that out for now. Generate the coupon code, and you can see now it's got a code up in here. So what I do is I copy this guy out, and now I'll go across to the demo workgroup, and I'll go back in here and hit licenses again, and I go to coupons and redeem a coupon, which is this one here. Check. And user migration bundle times 10, apply, hit done. And if I go to licenses now here, now you'll notice as well the coupons themselves are across the whole system. They're not, the coupons aren't limited to particular work groups. They are, and that's why we can use them across different work groups. It's the licenses that are the ones that are applied at a work group level. So you can now see we've applied that coupon into this work group. We now have 10 licenses applied, so we can go ahead and use those. So let's go back to here, and if we go and try and assign those again now, it should say we have some available. There we are, 10 available. We'll have 6 left. Apply those. It'll take a minute or so to apply the license. Once it does and we do a refresh, you'll see them appear here with the yes in there. So we just hang fire for that. And there we go. We've got the yes applied there. So now what I'm going to do is start that pre-stage. So we'll do the tick with everybody and we'll hit pre-stage migration. We get a few options to check now. So firstly, we need to say how much we're going to pre-stage. And we're going to say here everything up to, I'm going to say 30 days ago. And if we want to schedule the migration, really for a pre-stage, we just kick it off. But if you did want to schedule it, you can click here and then put a time and a date that it would kick off. If you leave that unchecked, it will go immediately. So we're going to do that, hit start, and you can see now they hit submitted. So we're going to refresh the page periodically and see how much data is going through, and we should start to see some movement. We'll certainly see some movement in this side of the house too. So we'll have that up as well. We'll be able to see things start to get populated, which is always fun to see. So let's let that do its thing for a bit, and I'll come back to you once everything starts. So just refreshing, checking on that migration. You can see these ones have been done. They're quite small. Bob Jones is still running. So let's have a look at his account here. And yep, you can see data is definitely coming in. And as the migration process is running, you actually see these numbers. Yeah, see that? They're actually changing, going up. You can see data which is inbound into that account. So yeah, we'll come back when it's finished. So look at that. We've got a pre-migration completed. We'll have a quick look at his account there. You can see, yes, he's got plenty of data in there. It's good. And notice the date as well. We've got 13th of September, which is 30 days ago. So really he is really good. He's pre-staged. It will make the actual full migration we do on that evening, or when we do it, relatively quick, because it's only going to be doing 30 days. So let's move forward and say, okay, now we're going to hit our migration time, and we are going to be making the transition from the Cozy Mouse into Planium for these 4 people. Now, we're not going to bring the domain over. We've got people left behind in the other tenant, so we're going to keep the Cozy Mouse there. But in this particular migration, they've just moved across to another tenant, and they're going to get a new UPN and a new mailbox address in there. So what I wanted to do with it was say, okay, that's good, but when somebody emails that old account, we can leave it there for a bit, just to make sure that everything is done correctly. But we do want to put a forwarder on that account, so anything coming into that old Cozy Mouse account gets forwarded across to the new Planium account. Now I would recommend we do that just before we do the full migration. That way anything that is coming across there after we've done the full migration to them actually using that account, we know that everything is going to be captured for that migration going forward. So how we're going to do that, we're going to open up an admin PowerShell 7 window, which opens up like this. So we'll do our Connect Exchange Online. It'll drop us into the authentication screen for our tenant. We do that. Excellent. And come back there. So what I'm going to do is do the get mailbox, and you can see we've already done that before. I just want to have a look at the parameters here. You can see he has no forwarding SMTP address at the moment. So what we're going to do is we are going to set one for him, which we'll do with that command, which is just setting Bob Jones at Cozy Mouse forwarding SMTP address across to his Planium account. You see that is now set. If I go up a couple there and have a look, we should see that in there, and there it is. So let's do a quick test on that to make sure that is working, and then we will go ahead and do a full migration. So we just send a quick email, Bob Jones at Cozy Mouse. We'll call it testing forward in there. Oh, go up here. Oops. Hi, Bob. Testing. Send there, and we'll drop into the target. That is a Planium inbox, and hoping pretty shortly we should see an email from myself drop in there. Should go straight to the top, seeing as we've got a nice gap of a month in there. So we'll give that a second and that should appear. Oh, there we go. Look at that. So our forwarding is in place and working well. So that is certainly good. Let's now go back to our MigrationWiz Console. This one here, and we're going to tag everybody. And we will now just do a full migration. Like so, And yes, we could schedule it at a certain time if we want to, but these are all the items that will come across. Notice on the Prestage as well, it didn't have that item there. That's because on a Prestage, we don't really have the option to do things like contacts and calendars. They're not part of the Prestage. It really is the mail that's part of the Prestage, because the contacts and calendars and things are so small. There's really no benefit in pre-staging those. They can just be done at the full migration end. So we do that. Like the pre-migration, we could set up a time if we want to kick it off at a particular hour. We could. In this occasion, I'm just going to go ahead and just hit start migration and do everybody in one go straight away. So that now comes to submitted. And once again, we will just hang for a bit and see what that looks like as it's coming through. Obviously, we'll start to see mail appear in here, but I'll obviously come back on the session here once we can see more data there. And while we're waiting for that one, I just want to show you a little trick which we do with that source file. Remember this one which we set up the accounts to start with in the migration project. This information has obviously got the source and destination handy for that mail forwarder if you want to put it on. So what you can do here is just create a quick formula and then obviously cut and paste it into your PowerShell. So what you could do is something like this. You'd say equals and let's say set mailbox, and it will be identity and put the item there, that, and it'll be this cell and one of those, space, and then it would be forwarding SMTP address, and once again the little quotes there, speech marks, and be this guy as our destination, and bang, and then end those, and then there's a lot of. So you got to watch what I'm pressing to actually see that correctly, but you can see it better up in this side of the house here rather than down here. But what it'll do is you can see there, if we make these ones a little bit smaller so you can see what it's done, you can see there it's created that command for you. Now what we do is we just take that cell and copy and just paste it into those. You see straight away we've got our nice commands. Now I know this one has already been done, but what you then do is just grab those and copy that into your PowerShell and paste that, bam, and then all your forwarders have been set straight away. And you can see there Bob Jones hasn't been done, it's already got one set, which is good. And you'll notice as well, if you run it twice, it'll say that for all 4 of them. There we go, haven't been modified. So those forwarders are in place, and that's good. As I say, nice little trick using that data you've got in your file. You can do all kinds of commands, obviously easy, just build them like that and cut and paste them into PowerShell. Looking at the console there, you can see it's completed the full migration. Those numbers are a bit bigger than the Prestage, obviously, showing we have got some data movement, which is good to see, but the main thing is we have completed the full. Now if we look at the mailbox itself, you'll see, yep, look at that, we do have data from, as you can see, Saturday, Friday, going back, Thursday, so it has done the correct job, which is great. Now obviously this migration process doesn't destroy anything in the source. It's still a valid account, Cozy Mouse there as you can see, and it's still taking data. You can even log into it. So you're going to need to do some things depending on how your migration is working, whether the particular circumstance you have as why you're doing it is obviously what to be considered there. But just remember that we put the forwarder in place, so email is moving across, but you really want to be looking at what you need to do on the source, whether you want to remove it or how things will work. Now if there was a delay, and let's suppose the user wasn't ready then for that migration, not a problem, that can stay there. You can run another full migration later, just run another one over the top and it will do a catch-up of the data that's in there and bring that across. Obviously with a forwarder in place, it's going to be coming across to the new one anyway, so you can decide how you want to be using that. But essentially that's that control is all down to you. This tool is meant to just grab data from one mailbox and put it into another, so you can build your own migration process around what you are doing. That concludes the session for today. I hope that was useful for people that are either starting out on the MigrationWiz journey, or they've done it before and just needed a bit brush up on those like the API permissions at the start and what's needed. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.